if we put our hands inside very quickly, because it has such a strong effect on our subconsciousness, on our energy body, right, on our consciousness, that's where it acts, and then it ripples through into the physical, and our system starts to act, to get in order. So first of all, the energetic stressors like EMFs, they're around us, they're harmonized, so they don't bother us anymore at that point. And then our internal system also starts to improve. So you see a significant improvement in your blood very quickly, very rapidly, shown in placebo-controlled blinded studies to actually reverse even stage 1 and stage 2 of blood clotting within minutes. Your white blood cell activity improves, your cell recovery rate, your wound healing rate accelerates by 50 to 100%, shown in a university lab.
Welcome to the Consciousness of the Way. I'm your humble servant and Sifu, Taoist Master San Qing, and I have an incredible guest here today. I'm going to skip past the normal amazement of coming down to the Christmas tree and the universe bringing an incredible being into my very space, but I want to welcome to the podcast today Philipp von Holtzendorff, a healer, a collective consciousness creator, and just an amazing being. Welcome to the podcast, my friend.
Thanks so much for having me on.
This is always a great conversation. I really welcome anything to do with just that topic, consciousness healing. I would like you to just share with the audience just a little bit of a backstory of how you got to where we are today.
Well, so I used to work in corporate Europe and in corporate US, and pretty early on though, in the early 2000s, I realized I had cut myself off from my own emotions and feelings. I discredited my own intuition, and with that also the intuition in others, and I was really just brain focused and very rational. Now looking back, I know why that was the case, because I was trying to avoid pain and try to stay away from something that I felt uncomfortable with, that was, you know, like a territory that I couldn't deal with in a very rational way. And at that point, when I really realized that, I said to myself, okay, I need to find myself again, whatever that meant, but that was kind of what was resonating within me. I knew I had to kind of find myself again. So I started with meditation, I started with yoga, and then things started to open up, and then I did more. I read some books, and I was like, okay, well, that's interesting, but it doesn't, it's just theory. So I need to get into practice and feel more and experience more. So I went through various shamanic healing workshops. I got trained in various energy healing techniques, in past life regression work, things like that. And over the course of many years, I also tried to find some of the best healers in the world that I could locate and find to learn from. And yeah, so fast forward, obviously I first tried to infuse some of what I was and what I experienced, what I became in the corporate world, but then at some point that came to an end, because I think it was over with shining light into the corporate world and really just work from my own heart and create what is my calling, because I had this calling to help people, really help people. And throughout that time in parallel, also this passion was started, or reactivated for me, which was, I really helping people, and I think in the realm of biohacking and bioenergy hacking, right? I'm just using these buzzwords here because they pretty much explain what it was that I was looking into, that I got really excited with. And yeah, so in 2016 I left corporate completely, and since then have just been creating was my calling, and that's where we are today, creating healing technology. We're not supposed to really say healing, but let's call it quantum technology and frequency medicine then.
I love it. I love it. It's don't don't tell the masses the truth. That's not possible. We've patented that particular word. So something else other than giving them the truth of how they can come back to the reality that it's within them. But no, 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 no. We've patented that. So you'll have to give it some other term, something. Even I think quantum anything at some point is going to be patented by somebody. You might have to just call it a coincidence healing or something. I don't know.
Exactly, yeah. And well, maybe one thing that, I kind of left out, during my corporate career, I was a vice president at T-Mobile International, responsible for 14 countries, and then also at T-Mobile US. And the reason I say that is because what we're doing helps with electromagnetic fields that are detrimental to our energy system and our body. That's just like one thing of what it does, but it's sort of interesting, I think, at least, because I know all these perspectives from a consumer, from the telco industry perspective, cell towers, 4G, 5G, all of that perspective, and then the perspective of, okay, so what can actually be done to leverage this amazing technology, which it is. It's an amazing technology, and it helps people on many levels, but to really neutralize the harmful effect it has, right? Because then, we have just the positives, and yeah, that's what we've been dealing with quite a bit.
No, you're bringing up a great point. So, if you water it down to all viewers, students, all the subscribers on this channel, everything is energy, vibration, frequency, resonance. Okay, now how do we get there? I had a dear friend of the channel yesterday, and she sort of does a lot of. She was not really familiar with. Um, there's a specific term when you start getting into these sort of like transferring or creating this resonance and how that comes about. You can take it from variables, more commonly, something that might be in the mainstream. People use the word geometry, sacred geometry, in a sense of the word. How is that generated from a center point, evolutionary? This is the center of all things, creating life per se, which would then refer back to a theory called the Big Bang. I mean, we could just keep going in loops, but I mean, evidence-based stuff is really how we sort of get this sort of miracle, epiphany, present moment, now sort of stuff. So let's talk about how you sort of dug deep into creating your own technology that was repeatable, that you can use to help people um, effectively reset themselves to the default of perfection. That's how I would put it. Bringing it back to source. Some people call it scalar waves. I mean, I think it's variable, but evidence based stuff for me is I see a healing, a manifestation. Magic to me within a Taoist principle sort of practice is a high level manifestation where you're starting to move the construct around and everything has an imprint and an energy. And when you put it in a certain configuration, will generate a result. So I would love to hear more about your exploration from something so left brain to a right brain sort of thing to a all things. I don't really use those terms, but sometimes people need to hear that because you're coming from such an incredible, your high level upper management of a huge company that literally sells the sort of things now today. You're like the Superman version, creating constructs to mitigate or dissolve the harmful effects of some of these waves of energy, as you would put it. So what was the turning point, and where did you go? You traveled the world being taught by a lot of these really powerful, what you discovered as healers. Where did it take you, and how did you form the very technology that you use today?
Yeah, so because of this passion to create something that truly helps people, um, in regards to their health, but then realizing later, that a lot of the health, the physical health, actually, I mean, actually, all of it, frankly, all of it has to do with energy, right? And so you
Everything.
don't get sick if you don't have it in your field. Um, Realizing that we can't just focus on the physical, but really on the energy, but also on the physical. It was already in my field, right, to figure something out and to create something in that regard. And then I, bumped into a couple companies that were doing some quantum stuff, and they did it in a pretty bad way though. So because they used a little bit of quantum energy, they had no high consciousness levels whatsoever, and they infused magnetism or electricity, and that made it more noticeable on a physical level for people, because obviously something that's electromagnetic or electric or magnetic, you can feel that physically very much, right? So um, you can then tell people, wow, don't you feel this quantum energy is so yeah, it's so strong. But the fact of the matter was that it also created stress for the human body, so it had some benefits and at the same time disadvantages. So looked at that, and then I had this vision of what could be created if done right. If you didn't use any brute force, but you would literally work with pure 100% natural quantum energy and wouldn't add any of these stressors. Well, maybe it's then more subtle, and more people may have a harder time feeling it because they're so used to it needs to be physical in order to feel something, right? But that was not the goal. It wasn't the goal that people feel something physically. The goal was to create something that truly helps and that is truly next level. And so I basically assembled a team, with some of the most amazing healers that I had gotten to know over time. And one of them is actually my wife. I didn't really need to assemble her, so she was born with the ability to see energy and frequencies and aura, and she perfected that over time. And it's interesting because like every healer has his her own style and also like core competencies, right? So I haven't met anyone that's like the other. So as an example, I would say that my wife, from all I've met, she's the best I've ever met in being able to read people and see why they have a certain problem that they struggle with, or multiple, right? So what's the actual deepest root cause of that? And what can you do to transform it? Never seen anyone that can do that as perfectly as she does that. And then we work with a Roman Hafner who works on another level. He was born also with the ability to see energy fields and frequencies, but on an extremely granular level. He's probably top 5 in the world from anyone that even exists in terms of being able to see frequencies on that level. He had to learn the physical seeing over many years because he had to concentrate so much to see matter, how we see this pen here as a physical object, right? He would just see the vibration and the frequencies of it. And if he looked at you, he would see your heartbeat and all of that. And he could tell you, oh, you have something in your back that's, and what you've just eaten. He could see all those things. Um, and, and doctors called him up already when he was 11, 12 years old to diagnose patients and tell them what to do, where they had no idea what they should do with these outtreated patients. So that type of caliber we assembled, and then some scientists obviously to create this technology. And yeah, the vision obviously behind it was to create something that can help 24/7, that doesn't replace a healer, but sort of becomes the healer for your pocket or for your home, that's there all the time and can constantly help you in a way that is not like an ibuprofen pill where you take it, then for a few hours you don't have a headache, because it just works on the symptoms, and then if you haven't fixed the root cause of it, the headache comes back and you need to take another pill. But so the way that, for example, these blocks work, and the blocks are like quantum energy generator, you can call them actually high consciousness fields, because they can be calibrated on the Hawkins scale and they actually vibrate higher than any other product on earth that's publicly available by far and large. So it has a very high consciousness level, so it vibrates very high. So if you get in contact with that, your own system, your own energy system starts to vibrate higher, and then you're relearning that, because that is your nature. It is your very nature to um it's nothing artificial. It sort of reminds your whole system on how to vibrate higher. And if you then, after 2 weeks or 3 weeks of having that around you, when you then go to town, you're in a much stronger energy field than you were before, and even though you don't have it with you, so you get to constantly um, upgrade your own consciousness level. And it frankly does not matter where you are. If you're completely new to this and you're a very unconscious person, um, you live unhealthy, then it picks you up where you're at, and then you may have more detox effects than others, and you may have also more issues bubbling up that you need to work through. But if you're in very advanced healers, we have many, many, many healers, several hundred healers that use our technology, that are very advanced, and they use it because it still helps them, and it helps them to help others even more. So it really is completely independent on how advanced you are. It, it can add to the benefit. And there's a lot more to that, but I want to stop talking at this point, and you get to ask the questions.
Yeah, no, no. I mean, you had me at hello. It's really profound stuff. I mean, the ancient practices I teach people are they evoke sort of gateways within the energy system of the human body that it's been around for thousands of years, and everyone has their own system, right? But I think for the audience to have a little bit more of a digestible understanding of this, we're talking about measuring something that's beyond the electromagnetic field, that spectrum within what we call this 3D density. So now we're getting up to something that is a wave that is not um, a frequency that would be measured within this 3D. So we're talking about something, I assume you're speaking about what most people talk about, which is a scalar wave.
Nope.
Or no, you're going beyond that. Okay.
Yeah, because so scalar wave, from our understanding, is just a frequency set, just as, maybe not the right word, but it is a frequency set that exists within the quantum field. So the quantum field is the most fundamental layer of um, energy. That is the energy behind the matter. And then all frequencies exist within the quantum field. So
Mhm.
scalar is already one level up.
Right. So most people talk about scalar. And then for me, what I tap into is what we call the stillness between the breath in and the breath out, which is called the Wu Ji within Taoism, which is the mother of all things, which is Chi, prana, life, God, universe, whatever you want to call it. But it's beyond this measurable reality. And so, how does that transmute into something tangible? Well, I show people, whether it's manifestation, magic, or healing, and the physical healing is the quickest way to go. WTF, how did you do that? That just like instantly was like, and I mean, you and I are probably have gone on the same path, but for the last 30 years, I've seen it. I've seen everything. It doesn't matter. I've seen gangrenous flesh go back to pink in color within 40 minutes. I've seen bones fused before my very eyes. I've seen flesh seal up before my very eyes. I've seen tumors disappear. I mean, this just goes on and on and on. And the possibilities, quite frankly, are limitless. I will never, ever doubt anything, but I want to see it with my own eyes. I want to experience it. So, what is it that you're using? I assume most people are using some type of geometry to sort of harness this type of like energy in some way that's repeatable. So I normally teach people human dowsing, where you can pick out vortices, whether they're high or low, ley lines, and all power centers, power points, people like to put it, in any sort of environment, and quickly ascertain where they are, and using feng shui, move things around to elevate the resonance within that space. What are you guys using to calibrate something in a certain space? You mentioned the cube, that it can ice bring basically maintain that resonance within that space wherever that object is.
Hmm. Yeah, so while our blogs have a specific mandala, which stands for unity, love, and peace at the same time,
Mm-hmm,
that is not the reason why it vibrates the way it does.
mm-hmm.
We actually infuse the plates, and I mean, I have a big one here that I could show real quick here.
Mm,
You
mm.
see also this mandala on the top, maybe,
Yeah, I mean,
right?
it's quite interesting. It's occupying your space, but for all my students or any of the OGs of the channel, when you're moving that, there's this interesting charge that comes up and down my Tai Chi pole. I feel it more at the occiput at the back of my head. So I'm feeling a transmission of something. That's where I find it interesting, because a lot of people will, and this is just my opinion and how I experience it, but as you ascend higher, most people say that it's beyond the spectrum, it's beyond the feeling, but you're registering things. So if it's coming in the form of physical, mental, emotional, spiritual healing, something's taken place. So it's going to take place now. Whether you feel it within this physical body is subject to, I think, your sensory perception, which is sort of something that is a developmental skill within the things I teach people. But like, there is 100% for all my students. I mean, I'm getting more of a charge. You're getting a little charge there. You can feel it in your spine. You can feel it in the core of your energy body. And so when you speak on the things like within your wife's skill set, or your dear friend, these are the types of things that I've been teaching people. And there's systems to teach people this sensory perception, and it's out there and it's real. And what Philip is speaking of, and what he's sharing now, and the charge he just got, we're sharing it. This is real. This is not a figment of someone's imagination. He's not peddling dreams or hopes of things. When you experience the stuff he's speaking of, like we're getting more charge, this is happening now. And I'm really grateful that we are present in this part of human history to witness this conscious evolution, revolution, however you want to put it. But these technologies are real. This is not some, you get to a lot of these conscious workshops, and I'm having an expo here in Las Vegas, probably before the end of the year. I'm going to invite you. You may not have the ability. Maybe next year you'll come. But I've accumulated, hundreds of healers through my own journey in podcasting and my own experience, channelers, healers, the real deal. 30 years ago, when I started my journey of this, and people would come to me for something like an exorcism, because that's a specialty within Taoism. That's a psychotic episode. They were looking at dodging potentially being admitted to a psych ward 30 years ago. Today, someone having the same experience would be like, I just channeled the Palladians. They don't even go there. And so you go on Yelp or the internet, you've got 500 healers, 500 mediums, 500 channelers, And these people are for real. They're not full of crap. And I think it's really it's so exciting. And when you show me technology like the stuff that you've put together, it's for reals. And so with an object like that, what sort of like space does that sort of contain that energy? And
Mhm.
once you put it down, it doesn't go anywhere. It's there. It's present at all times, and it will. That's the beautiful part. Like when you said, you don't have to be on. You don't have to be, the high priestess of the Akanaka special cultivation spiritual practices. You're going to experience a change, and you can just be in the presence of this, and it's altering everything around you from a subatomic level within all objects. You could probably pick up an object that's in the same space as this and measure it, and you'll be like, that's now structurally different. It's not the same anymore. Can you share more about that?
Yes. So, and by the way, so for us humans, what it does, it reminds us of our own completeness.
Hmm.
And it invites us. Oh, I need to plug in the cable real quick here, otherwise I'll lose you. Thank you for the reminder. um, so because we all have our blueprint that we sort of translate through our crystalline DNA structure into this reality, and I always, you know, talk about this living room with a lot of windows, and then the sun shines in. When the windows are all dirty, the sun is there, but it can't fully shine in. So as you clean and wipe these windows, suddenly you get all the light in. That's pretty much what starts to happen. And it works on a consciousness level. So in between, so the plates that I showed, they're infused with very concentrated, pure quantum energy. And when aligned in a,
Philip, you there?
yes, I'm still here. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Yeah, perfect.
Okay. Sorry. Yeah, so
Just at the key part, I was like, what? What?
yeah. Okay, so the plates are infused with a super concentrated and pure quantum energy, and then when you align them in a relatively parallel fashion, then you have a little multi-dimensional quantum energy space inside. It's not just a field. It's literally a multi-dimensional quantum energy space, and if you put something inside, it it is sort of charged and it changes its vibration. If you put gold in, the gold will vibrate higher. If you put silver in, the silver will vibrate higher. Now, what does that mean then? The people that you're talking about, they will be able to see that energetically, that wow, this vibrates so much higher. It's at its full potential. And someone that cannot see or perceive energy at all, they would tell you, oh, it looks more beautiful, but they don't know why. Okay. So then you can put water inside, for example, and then water gets structured. Like the Emoto Institute in Japan ran an analysis, and it showed that our tech was able to improve water faster than any other method they tested before. So since then, they've actually been reselling our products in Japan, which they'd never done before because they're a research institute. They're not a shop usually, but they were so impressed because that's the very essence of what Masaru Emoto worked on many, many years ago to show that you can change energy in water. And, obviously, if you have a method that changes it so beautifully that you literally have primal water energetically after that, how awesome is that? Now, coming to us now, or animals, right? If we put our hands inside very quickly, because it has such a strong effect on our subconsciousness, on our energy body, right? On our consciousness, that's where it acts, and then it ripples through into the physical, and our system starts to act, to get in order. So first of all, the energetic stressors like EMFs, they're around us, they're harmonized, so they don't bother us anymore at that point. And then our internal system also starts to improve. So you see a significant improvement in your blood very quickly, very rapidly, shown in placebo controlled blinded studies to actually reverse even stage 1 and stage 2 of blood clotting within minutes. Your white blood cell activity improves, your cell recovery rate, your wound healing rate accelerates by 50 to 100%, shown in a university lab, also in blinded studies with statistical significance. It shows that your cell energy production, that's called the ATP production, increases by up to 20 to 29%. So that's all physical effects that are amazing, right? They're by itself, they're already medical breakthroughs, but it all happens because it works on the fundamental layer of our existence, the base energy layer, the consciousness level. That's where it works. And now, just real quick to wrap this up, because I'm talking about the space inside, right? When you tap into that, now that's where it's the strongest. That's where you can charge things like metals. If you have the gold watch outside of this block, it does not get charged, unless it's super strong. There's variances, but if you put water there, it still gets charged. Everything that's not as dense gets charged and vibrates higher, and frankly, everything that is on a frequency level, like EMFs, for example, somewhere in your home or office space,
Mm.
in a massive radius, like with this block I just showed you, probably within at least 600 meters, that is like, I don't know, what is that, 1,800 feet radius, it can harmonize EMF. So at your show there, and I'd be super interested to learn more about it, so definitely send me some information on that.
Yeah,
If we put this one there, then you couldn't measure any negative effects of EMF on anyone there.
yeah.
That's in a nutshell kind of what this does and how it works.
Now, um, when you say measure, like normally I dabbled in certain things. I have techniques I teach people to as sort of access the state that I'm speaking of. And so when I measure that from a physiology perspective, they transmit brain waves from anywhere from, I normally average 100 to 400 hertz. Now that's sort of
Mhm.
like nuts in relation to what's out there on a brainwave spectrum in the last 10 years. 10 years ago, they would say 2% of the population could access a gamma brainwave. Now, of course, now things are changing quite rapidly from a day to day basis. I stay in that sort of high hertz brainwave literally most of the day. And that's still not sort of measured, you see, and that's just what I measured with an EEG. Now, when you get to sort of like, okay, well, that's not the Hawkins scale. The Hawkins scale says 963 is the state of highest consciousness. Now, I'm kind of curious because to measure that, there I haven't found an EEG that can measure anything above that, or we're getting to really speculative sort of like registered qualified measurements. How do you guys measure that? Like I know what I know, and I measure it from the actual result. And there are systems that I use where within Taoism I have a system called Taoist rights, where I use a color, a shape, and a frequency. And once you take possession of that, it's an instant physical healing. And whether it's like phlegm on the lungs or you've got like a cut or whatever, you access these things and boom, it's instantaneous. So how do you guys measure this sort of frequency? I don't need that. I can tell that that's exactly what you're doing. But like for someone who's like, you're full of it, you don't know. How do you get the actual measurement that can validate that?
Well, so first of all, there is no quantumometer, and that's why, we also provide so many different studies that not we perform, but
Mhm.
various labs, institutes, and doctors' offices across the world. By now, I think over 60 different studies, over 48 of those placebo-controlled, which is quite massive. That shows the evidence, because what you need to do if you don't have a quantumometer, right? And we may have that at some point, but we don't. Um, then you need to measure the effects of what it has, right? That's a very, very common way to do that. And then you can rule out the placebo effect with sham devices and with blinded studies that are randomized, things like that. That's how you do it. And to measure the and calibrate the level of the Hawkins scale, you can use various methods, but they wouldn't be a mainstream scientific tool because, again, that hasn't been developed. So you can use
Mm,
kinesiology, obviously not by a beginner. It would have to be by someone that's advanced in it. You could use probably one of your methods, if you're an advanced user. You can just see it like a Roman Hafner. I mean, it would be for him
mm,
quite an effort to actually do muscle testing because he already knows it. If he looks at it, he just sees it.
mm,
So there's these ways, and then you can cross-reference that, obviously, that you say, okay, well, Roman, we know you can see it all and all that, but maybe we'll have a couple other people also test it and then make sure you know, um, it is what it is. And yeah, so, I don't have a problem with that the Hawkins scale calibration isn't mainstream scientific because it doesn't need to be, because there's all these other, evidence-based studies out there and all of that. And you can feel it with the Hawkins scale. I think what's important to understand, though, that is, by the way, people, if you haven't read the book Power versus Force by Dr. David Hawkins, I highly recommend it. Maybe more the audiobook because,
mm,
yeah, it's even better. You'll learn a lot about what that even means and what is an attractor field, and there's a lot of interesting stuff in that book. However, the scale that he set up was from 0 to 1,000. And now it gets really interesting because in the low levels, you have like anger, shame, guilt, these low vibrational states, basically. And then you move into unconditional love, which is the level of 500 on his scale, 540 joy. And then you have the enlightenment zone at some point. That's the largest zone. And he caps it at 1,000, which at the time when he wrote that book and set up that scale, that was accurate.
mm,
And at that time, things, ordinary things, and especially people couldn't vibrate higher, and he couldn't see any of that. However, that changed because Earth became a conscious creator about 10, 15 years ago. And if you don't know what that means, basically Earth completely changed the energetic nature. And everything that was limited before and very constrained, also for us humans, frankly, to live in this Earth realm, is now completely open up, and it has been since 10, 15 years. So Earth, we don't need to be concerned about Earth. We need to be concerned about us, because Earth has already jumped up and is already right there where humans at large, at least, have not, um, what they have not achieved yet. And we are in the process of that, obviously. That is the change to less density, to less power structures of the past, to more knowing, to more connection, to more remembering who we are and what we are, and that at core we're all connected, right? All these things come back up into our consciousness, and with that also it's possible for us to vibrate way, way higher and reach higher levels of consciousness. And then we checked, there isn't a limit anymore of 1,000, but there's interestingly also not a limit at 2,000, 3,000, 4,000, or 5,000. There is no limit. And that is actually also what consciousness is anyway, because consciousness, the whole super consciousness that we're aspects of, doesn't have a beginning, doesn't have an end. is eternal and is infinite. And infinite is something that all these words basically is something the brain tries to understand, but the brain can't really comprehend. It's something that can truly only be felt or experienced. And and so that's actually a great message that all these developments are happening on Earth now, because we're always very focused on what we see with our eyes happening in the world, and it's disturbing on that level, right? Certainly, there's no doubt about it. But stepping back from the greater consciousness picture and energetic development, oh my God, a lot is happening. A lot is happening.
Yeah, I kind of I come to a sort of like place of, I had my hit of physical healing 30 years ago on my journey almost instantaneously. I feel a little spoiled, perhaps. I don't know. But that's what I experience on a daily basis. That's my reality. That's how I teach people to access this state. So it's sort of an interesting. I've never really truly. I wouldn't say that there's any right or wrong way up the mountain, but I sort of, when I look at the Hawkins scale, it doesn't completely align with what I'm experiencing. So, even at 100 hertz, which basically means your brain is 100% enveloped consciousness, you can access alpha, theta, delta, epsilon, and that means you can affect instant change within what you would consider an unconscious process. So even at 100 hertz, I've had my brain waves measured and witnessed physical healing. So it's kind of like, it's an interesting one. You kind of get to a point where, okay, and then I've had other friends that measure psychics and mediums and all that kind of stuff. And there's little to no brain activity I find when I'm channeling certain spirits or whatever, or doing mediumship where you're having conversation. There's no brain activity at all. So it's kind of like, okay, that doesn't make sense. I'm getting direct source information. It's being validated for me at this very moment. Yet here we have the evidence base doesn't match. I feel like things on planet Earth do not match. And that's okay with me. But you get someone who's really into critical thinking and left brain processing, and they're going to be perplexed with that. So that's why I like to go, let me show you. So whenever I'm in a situation where I'll just point out all the vortices in their home in a digital sort of setting like this, and then get them to take an object, and I'll infuse it while they're holding it, and they'll go, what is going on? What the Because it has a whole different level of density, everything. And people are like, well, that's supposed to be higher. No, you can find a complete constructural change, and you're just tapping into it. So I'll take an apple, and it goes from an apple to a bowling ball, and it has all this DNA transformation in it, and it's evidence based. You hold it and go, whoa, where did this come from? This came from nowhere. Well, most people describe it. I see it as, it's almost like, maybe it's just my epiphany of transformation, but I see it as I enter that resonance, it drops down like, this supernatural Star Wars sort of beam of energy that envelops anything and everything, and then it sits there and it doesn't alter. You can put it down, and that's the funny part. And I think that's what I really love about what you're sharing and giving to people is, you can walk away from this conversation, you can pick up one of Philipp's products, you can pick up stuff that I do, and you'll walk away consciously without putting yourself in a lotus position and calling in your guides and lighting your incense, and it's still there. You'll come back to it tomorrow, and you'll have an altered effect, that by either placing your hand in Philipp's technology, or something that he's infused in that space. If it's a glass of water, it's different, right down to the very taste. And then, of course, if you want to go to the curiosity level of measuring that, you will notice that. And, telomere level, one of my friends likes to go in and alter hers, and she had it measured, and she went from the biological age of 20 down to 19. and it's in the paper that was measuring her telomere. So it's like, hang on, whoa, what's going on here? We're altering things at such a deep level. It's real, and that's what I want to see. I'm a show me guy. I want to see it. I want to experience it. I want transformation. I'm old school channeling. I've been channeling for 30 years, and I had another friend of mine on the channel, and he spent traveling the world. Just similar story to yours, where he's trained under many masters. I've had several. I get direct source. Taoism in of itself was really created by channelers, like Taoism, the seed of it. But you go deeper, you understand real source information is evident by what you're able to create and produce from this information, from this experience. And so we would do this, and this is what I do all the time. When I'm transferring and channeling this energy, I'll light a flame and put my hand over it, and I won't feel it, because my whole physical body is embodied with this God energy, Tao energy, and it's real. There's not a figment. Now he goes a little bit more extreme. He'll take out his own spirit knife and run it over your flesh, and if you don't cut, I'm like, oh, I'm good. The flame's good enough for me. But he does. I like to go a little. I want to be sure about this stuff, because he can't see what I can see, but he's experienced. And you train in this stuff, and you probably discovered this by training with a lot of masters. There's nothing that there are no limits to possibility to anything when you get there. And so, a lot of people throw that word around Kundalini experience. We have our own system of internal alchemy that I believe is second to none. But a lot of people have Kundalini experiences, and I believe that they're having an experience, and I see the energetic charge in the opening of their energetic body. But quite frankly, it's not a Kundalini experience. A Kundalini awakening is, I've only ever come across two people that have complete Kundalini awakenings, and they're levitating before my very eyes. They're stopping their heart. Now, I can stop my heart. That's not a big deal. That's like a level of hypnosis. You can get in there, envelop the tissue, create anesthesia, all that kind of good stuff. We're talking about different level stuff when you get to the stuff that Philip is mentioning. Now, do you have a group of people that imprints this stuff, or do you have a specific person, or how is this sort of like put into and infused into your technology?
So the original charging method, that's proprietary, so we don't share the process of that. But how we create frequencies, that we do with a group of people, and sometimes several work together, and then sometimes, most of the times actually, it's rather one working on it, and then we get it into testing, and then later into scientific testing. And the frequencies, there, some of them are etheric, so they're literally pulled out of the ether.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of funny because we call it quantum energy and we're talking about quantum, but we're not talking about
Beyond
quantum
quantum.
mechanics. Like,
Yeah.
we're not doing quantum mechanics. We actually work with a similar understanding that Tesla had, and obviously that you have in others, because you can access the ether, right? And if you know how to make the ether vibrate, you can also literally pull things out. You need to be advanced to do that. I mean, to do that good, right? Because I mean, even as a relative beginner, you can already access some frequencies, but I've seen that over and over again, and there's a lot of other crap in there, especially their own crap. So that's nice for people that they try that at home for themselves, and I don't want to discourage anyone. I think this is great because that's how you practice, but obviously we need to work at the highest integrity level if we make it available to the public, right? So that doesn't work. So etheric frequencies and with molecular frequencies, we can work also with sound frequencies and other frequencies, but we mainly use etheric and molecular frequencies. A molecular frequency would be, we have a healing plant that we love and see the benefits of for a certain issue, and then we can take a piece of the plant and literally copy that frequency. So it's copied from a physical substance, and that you can actually also do with this technology, because any frequency you put in, it could be a piece of a healing plant, could be a vitamin C pill or whatever. You put it in, and then you could put a glass of water in there together, and then after like 30 seconds, the frequency of that healing plant would be in the water as well. But you can go further and say, okay, well, the water is nice and I'll drink that, but I would love this specific healing plant to be vibrating in my field for the next 3 days because I feel I need that. Then just take a silver coin or some other like dense metal, put it in with that piece of the healing plant, and then you have that frequency in there embedded actually permanently, and it's then also upcharged with quantum energy, so it has a field, and the metal holds and transmits this energy very well, so the frequency is sort of boosted, and as you wear it then in your pocket, for example, you have that frequency there in a different way than if you were to just put the piece of the healing plant in there, because that isn't vibrating in such a large um, um, radius.
Yeah, yeah, no, I would have to agree with you. Sometimes normally I give people formation, and they're infused rocks, and there are 18 of them, and they receive those, and they can create any sort of geometric formation they want. And so when they apply it to any environment, I have to tune it a little bit, because I get a lot of people going, this stuff now, I don't get any Wi-Fi. So it's like, you're not there's I put it in, and now there's no Wi-Fi in my house. And so, okay, let's adjust it so we can transmute that as something that is effectively not altering your life so much that you have zero Wi-Fi transmitted from your whole space. But I mean, fundamentally, would you say that you can program, because this is how I do it, I program it, it can take up as much space as you want. Generally speaking, I put a formation, if someone wants a plant to grow or a harvest or anything, they take the rocks that are infused that I give them, and they put them in the formation that's appropriate, that I give them instruction for.
Mhm.
And the soil that would be shit turns into gold. And all of a sudden you're able to grow whatever the hell you want. Would you say that you would calibrate it to whatever space they're in, or you mentioned the vicinity of within that sort of vicinity, like, you know, all the OGs, any students, I love to just do this for face value, but you can palpate the juice that's coming from Philipp's space right now, and I kind of like it. And the closer I get to your technology, the more palpable it is. And then I teach people to use fingers as tuning forks. Initially, the most neural network of the face, the hands, and the feet within Taoism, we call them Lao Gong points by Hui. These are the initial energy sort of centers, so you're going to get the most charge from and be able to experience it within a physicality. Now, as you resonate higher, it becomes all engulfing throughout your whole body, and you become the tuning fork that I speak of. And so this is, an interesting, really sort of almost like you're moving your fingers into the center point, which is the center of 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 the center. And now you have, it's almost like freezer burn, quite frankly. From my physical perspective, I'm getting that response, which is really cool, because everything has an energy body to some degree, some energy field, that this quantum energy is now transmuted into sort of something more human like in its representation. So what would be if someone had a request, would you want more of these things around, or one could be sufficient, or how big, or
Yeah, so I mean, we have people that have 3, 4 blocks at their homes, but you can have just one totally to have a sufficient, amazing energy field, and certainly to take care of the basics. One is perfectly enough, and it doesn't really matter which size, except the so-called quantum block. I mean, that still covers your home, but it's by far and large the weakest block we have, because it's and it's like that for a reason, because it's very good to copy frequencies. So if someone is a tinker and just works a whole lot with frequencies, maybe is even a homeopath, right, then that is the device to get. And then also you can put pharmaceuticals in there and harmonize them without altering the actual substance. So that is also something it can be used for. It has all these other things too, but it's in that sense then way weaker in regards to water and EMF and all these things. Then you have three different sizes of blocks. The big one I just showed you, 15 by 15 by 15 inches, the largest. That was actually requested by our community because they wanted something where they can put whole salad bowls in there or big meat plates or whatever, right? And so it lives in the kitchen of most people. When I'm not in a podcast and have this right here, I actually also have that living in our kitchen because we actually use it, right? Because it's amazing. We have so forgotten, that what we can do with energy. And obviously you can, if you have the capability, you can use your own hands to, you know change the energetic nature of a piece of meat, for example, right? Where in a piece of meat, just because it's dead flesh of a dead animal, basically, there is something had to die in order to have this piece of meat somewhere, and there is negative energy in there. And then usually nowadays you have a lot more negative energy in something like that, and you actually have it nowadays in almost everything that you can buy, right? Because the nutrients have been depleted, right? A carrot nowadays has maybe just 5%, if even, of the nutrients it used to have, 20, 30 years ago. And then you have a lot of genetically modified foods. So, but with energy, you can actually reestablish the original matrix, the original information off a raspberry, off a strawberry, off a banana, off a carrot. Um, so that's amazing, right? And so people do that and they feel it. And it's interesting because there's people with food sensitivities. That's the one thing I don't want you to try at home. And I also don't make any claims here in regards to this because this needs to be studied further. But we do have quite a lot of evidence already pointing to the fact that charging a substance like crab meat or bread with gluten, etc., in our blocks for 4 minutes reduces the allergy response subsequently by 65 to 95%, possibly 100%. That has been shown by many people, and we demonstrated that actually at a conference live on stage. And there has been a pilot study. But the reason I say don't try it at home is because there is also deadly allergies and all of that. And I don't want you to try these things before we have a lot more data. But it's interesting because things are changed. And I think that's just fascinating by itself.
No, no. I mean, it was really profound. I mean, one of the closing things as a priest, I part of the training is at the end of the training. Um, I'm a lineage holder in two Taoist lineages, and so one's the 66, the other one's 126th generation. The end training is you take a sealed bottle of alcohol. Normally, it's vodka, and you have to remove the alcohol from the bottle and place it in another bottle, and then you have to drink that so-called alcohol in 60 seconds. And if you didn't do what you're supposed to do, you're going to have a really bad time. So there's an evidence-based reality, and this is exactly what, for the audience to understand, this is what Philipp's talking about. This is not, well, we ain't playing. Like, you will experience it. And if you get curious and you're using Philips products or my own, you will see it. And you can go measure it. I double dare anyone to measure this stuff because it's real. So you can get the actual, you know, evidence from a measuring device, whether it's your water. You can actually measure that with some type of like lab that can look at the different components of what's in it, how it's been altered before and after. This is all very, very tangible, and it comes in that kind of form where you can see it on paper. Well, it tastes different. Well, you know what? It's just a suggestibility thing. They're probably hypnotizing me. I just feel good just having it around me. Start measuring this stuff, guys, because this is not a figment of your imagination. It's not a suggestibility. We're not speaking on having to, sign up to some cult. This stuff alters your environment. It alters your physical, you know, construct. And because we're water, it's a fantastic way to alter the very infrastructure of the majority of the physical body very quickly.
Yep.
What are your thoughts on that?
Absolutely. I think it's all great what you say. And then, what I would tell people also is just most importantly, feel with your heart, and feel and maybe check in. And that's where you have your knowing. And if, nowadays we have a hard time accessing really our knowing. And if we can't do that, then go look at the studies, then use your brain as a tool uh, to help you get more information in that case.
Yeah, yeah. The what I call the truth teller. That's when you access that. We have practices to evoke these sort of dantians, the nidan, the internal alchemy, the internal power, nigong, and these are proven practices that have been going on for thousands of years. Do you have a practice that you focus for your own cultivation, your own energetic cultivation?
Yes. However, I don't practice anything every day the same way I do it. So I do a lot of Kundalini yoga. I still meditate every now and then. I leverage our technology
Mm.
in many ways. I practice awareness of just being aware, just being present, because you can be present in your brain and then you can maybe process 10,000 bits per second. But when you get into this actual space of you have suddenly trillions of bits a second that can be processed because there's not really a limit. That's where we get the true information, the true impulses from. So just practicing that. And then, you know, it changed over time because I think one thing I recommend to people that are at the beginning still and they don't really feel anything yet. 1 minute when you wake up, first thing you do is you don't grab your phone or speak with your spouse or anyone else. Just ask yourself the question, how do I feel? And you don't have to expect an answer or something. Just let that resonate and just stay with it for a minute and just feel yourself. And do that at night as well. You're in bed. Last thing you do before you literally start falling asleep, ask yourself, how do I feel? And just that's 2 minutes out of your day. And that did a whole lot for me, actually, because you're connecting at a very important points of the day with yourself and you're training to go inwards. And we completely forgot how to do that.
Yeah, yeah, I would have to agree. There's this sort of big, larger picture of societal norms that have been morphed over, human history. That we go through these cycles. I feel like it's spirituality, atheism, religion. I mentioned someone, I'm a priest and I've got three heads or something like that. It's like, whoa, oh my goodness. It's that's not where we're at. We're at right now, we're at Akashic Records, we're at high consciousness, we're at Egyptian sacred geometry. I mean, okay, it's all you say tomato, I say tomato. Everyone has their way up the mountain. And for me, once you dismiss someone else's belief system, you dismiss your own. And I think a lot of the seed of everything starts with your validation, and your truth is the only truth you need to be concerned with. And that's why I really love what you're saying and resonate with. Ask yourself, just start your day with a simple ask yourself how you're doing, what's going on. And it's a discovery, and that realization, that opening of this particular energy center and connecting with what's always been there is just, are you aware of it? What's your depth of sensory perception? And the more and more you develop and align yourself, this stuff never leaves us. It never has. So, you get profound innovators like Philip and his wife and his team creating this ability to harness really, profound state of healing. And I just get really excited because, we've been doing this stuff for thousands of years. I have a system, I train people in it. And then, once you infuse something, you can go around, literally make a business out of it. I mean, I got students that literally infuse the products, and they make a business out of that. It's just a one-time hit. Boom. Here, I'll come and I'll infuse it for $1,000. Your whole life will change. Whatever it is, I don't really care what the dollar amount is, because that's sort of very limited. But energetically, people tend to get really caught up on this whole spiritual journey where this should be free. Okay, I can really appreciate what you're saying. There's also an energy exchange within this 3D density, and it happens to be that currency and frequency that we just spoke of. So you sort of embody that, and it's so transformative. Taking a device like Philips will change your whole life. It'll change your family's life. It'll change your neighborhoods. Now, there are a couple of people out here right now that I can't specifically remember their name, but there's two or three people that are really going full tilt with, I have a device, give me your picture anywhere in the world, I will channel this energy to you. And fundamentally, it makes sense to a certain degree, as you and I understand the inner workings of this stuff. But then there's this realization, because I see a lot more than most people don't reveal to the world due to my training. There is this sort of like undertone of, snake oil salesman sort of stuff, which I don't really, my personality, not as a priest, my personality has a problem with that. What are your thoughts on this sort of like new entry level field of, I've got the technology, use it type of stuff? It's it's getting pretty bad, quite frankly.
Well, we haven't seen anything that actually works over distance, except there's one service out there that also works.
Mm.
It's called FLFE.
Hmm.
That's the, it's like our quantum upgrade, because we also have a remote service that we created called Quantum Upgrade. It's just on a completely different level. If you compare it with FLFE, it's literally, I mean, it's like comparing a bike with a new Lamborghini,
Hmm.
but it still works what they do, nevertheless, and it's also good energy. Other than that, we haven't seen anything work, and there's some out there that they have a technology where they can make things happen with, but unfortunately, they're not trained enough so that they put out something that's actually bad, like literally bad for people. Because, give you an example, if someone has a device, let's say even a device like this, if you had a block, and with this block you can apply quantum entanglement, you can literally do it. It is proven. um, you could put a picture in this block, and then that person will be in the field. And it's amazing. It's amazing energy. It's like, and you can measure how the blood optimizes rapidly, the heart rate variability improves, and all that. It doesn't matter where that person is. But if you now to if you were to now put two pictures in there, one of you and one of an elephant, or one of, I don't know, a person across the street, then suddenly these two energy fields get commingled. If you put a third one in there, all of their energy fields get commingled, and that is not at all okay, because everyone has their own autark energy field and should maintain that. You should not lump them into a soup with others. Um, and these people are doing that because they can't see that. That's what they do, and so that is very disappointing. In the end of the day, I mean, the people that use a service like that probably need to just experience it that way because they do it. You don't call anything into your life just because it happens to you. It's like you're responsible, but still, these companies are also responsible. So I have a mixed feeling about that, to be honest.
Yeah, oh yeah. I mean, I mean, distance healing, or what you're referring to as quantum entanglement, is from a Taoist alchemy practice, has been around since the beginning of all things, when the Yellow Emperor heard the whispers of the universe and created the very alchemy practices that we have today and the infrastructure of Chinese medicine and the Chinese culture. So, yeah, I get it. I mean, I don't, I find there's a little bit of a disconnect when someone goes, I need a picture, I need a name. I have people come to me every day, and this is not abnormal. Grandma's in a coma, she's going to die tomorrow. And no, she's not. And the reason they come to me is my network. And they're like, you're that guy that I need to talk to. Okay, great. No, she's not going to die. She'll be fine. And they're like, whoa, you are that guy. And the next day, wake up, vitals are regulated, and it's a miracle. Now, I've been doing this stuff for 30 years. I don't need to know grandma's name. I don't know, because when you're acting as this pure source, or you are the pure source, and you're not a place, person, or thing, information like that is sort of like, my teacher Latsu that I channel, he refers to it as this: humans are so interesting, they're very funny, because it's like you're a grain of sand asking the beach, what are we doing today, instead of falling back into the beach and being realized. And so that's sort of fundamentally a little bit of a stretch when people take this technology and they need a photo of somebody and they integrate it. It's the now harnessing that. I know it's evidence-based for me. What you're sharing with the world is very palpable and tangible from a from what I consider someone who has a little bit more experience consciously and through other past lives. And even over my natural born life of 30 years training people in this stuff, it's tangible, it's real. Whenever my students witness this, or subscribers of the channel, or I actually, strangely enough, have an app that acquires this very state, and people are like, what? Yeah, you literally hit play. You don't have to have any affiliation or belief system, and you will create a state within you that's equivalent to 5 pina coladas, a full body massage, and 10 days in the Bahamas. And people are scratching their head, how did that happen? Because it's encapsulated within the experience, and you are now like synchronizing your energy centers. And most of the side effects of this type of state, that they train themselves, because they're in training their physical body to be aware of this. And so within one session within this training system, they can call in this state and it's present for them. And so I love the idea, or not just the idea, I use sort of old hillbilly versions where I'm taking stones from the vast landscape of the desert, and I send them to people and they get their 18 stones and they create their own geometry. But you've got this system where it's like, these are a much bigger scale. They're very sexy looking. I love the way they look. They're beautiful. And people need to start really applying it and getting a taste of what it's like to be in harmony and healing. And so I can never, ever have too much of this, never, ever have too much of interaction with incredible beings like yourself that are clearly whether it's your wife or yourself, you're channeling this directly. I know you might dismiss that. I'm just an observation from an OG. There, you're getting insight into how you got to this point. You jumped heavily from left brain, CFO sort of high management material into, innovator, conscious creator, and it's just profound. And these types of stories and understanding of this type of stuff is what we need, in my opinion, to help raise the conscious collective and remind people. And my goodness, how long have you been in business doing this stuff?
We launched in the end of 2019.
Wow.
Fall of 2019 is when we launched the Leela Quantum Tech, and we launched the Quantum upgrade. I think that was in 2022. Yeah,
Wow.
2022.
Wow. All
Yeah.
right. So for the audience, I want to thank Philip. And one quick last question. Quickly squeeze it in. What's your definition of consciousness? Go.
Consciousness is literally everything with no beginning, no end. It is eternal and infinite.
Right.
And you are, I am, we are all parts and aspects of that.
I love it. I'm going to put all your social under this podcast. It's going to go out on YouTube first, then it's going to go across all 20 platforms. And so, again, I'm so grateful to meet you. Thank you so much for sharing your time with me. I want to thank the universe for bringing you into my life. I want to thank the audience for sharing their time with us today. And I am your humble servant and Sifu, Taoist Master San Qing. And I'll see you on the next one, guys.
Thank you.